Welcome to Distance is No Obstacle, a medical education podcast aimed at providing bite-sized education and information for people working in rural and remote Australia.
Welcome to this episode of the Distance is No Obstacle podcast, Emergency Medicine, How to Prepare. Today we explore working in unique emergency medicine settings and what you need to consider if this is a line of work you are thinking about. I'm your host, Dr. Lin Arias, Rural West Australian GP Locum, and I'm joined by Dr. David Hateley, Rural Generalist and recently returned Antarctic Medical Officer, who was based at Mawson Station with the Australian Antarctic Division in 2024. Welcome, David.
Hey, how are you going?
I'm great. So tell us about the training and preparation required to be a medical officer in Antarctica for an Australian.
Yeah, so it starts about 6 months before you leave, a little bit more. You do a course on surgical preparation for an appendectomy with cadavers and with the surgeons from the Royal Hobart Hospital, and do a few simulations there, and also do a regional anaesthetic course on the same cadavers with the anaesthetists from the same hospital who have a big part in all the training of both us and the other lay surgical assistants while we're down there. Aside from that, we do training on all the different machines and bings and bobs that we have there, X-ray training, expedition medicine training, water testing training. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of training.
And we'll get on to how much of it you had to use while you were down there. But I'm curious, what's the selection criteria you needed to meet in order to be selected?
I don't think there's a distinct criteria aside from, being registered as a medical practitioner with APRA. But I think the desirable sort of criteria would be having something like an acrim and lots of generalist skills. And those generalist skills are what you need down there when you're the only doctor dealing with, anything that comes in. So I think they do like having the returning doctors because they've already done some of the training, but certainly, they do. When I was training, we had 4-5 new doctors training to go down. So, and there was 3 rural GPs, 1 Tasmanian GP. I suppose most of Tasmania is rural, so that's 4 rural GPs and a ED FASM, who was, getting towards the end of his career. So, very experienced. You don't need a fellowship. They've had obstetrician gynecologists go down. They've had anaesthetists go down. They've EDs guys go down. They had people without fellowships go down. I think it's just having the right experience and I suppose being available to do the extra training that you might need to go down. So, for example, I spent 6 weeks with our surgeons in Bunbury to do my extra surgical training. So, you do get the training that you may not have the experience on. I didn't have to do the extra anaesthetic training that some of the others had to do because I'd done my DRGA before I left. Or for those that don't know, that's the GP anaesthetics training. That gives you the credentials to work regionally in Australia. So I was quite proficient there, so I didn't have to do that extra training, but certainly they just tailor the extra little bits around what your experience
So what
is.
I'm gathering you're saying is you don't actually need to have that additional training to be considered to be a medical officer in Antarctica, and they will make sure that they train you in whatever you need to know.
Absolutely. I think it's helpful for your selection, and your CV and getting the job if you've had some surgical experience or you've had some anaesthetic experience, but it's not mandatory.
That's very exciting. And, for people who don't have that experience and don't necessarily want to go and get that kind of additional training, that's great to know that really if they bring in generalist skills, that they will receive the training that they need there. What did you do most medically? Like, what kinds of problems did you see? What sort of medically kept you busy, and how busy were you medically?
I'll start with the how busy. Look, I suppose it's probably a good year for everyone if you're not terribly busy, and I wasn't terribly busy. So, there is a lot of counting and stock taking and monthly quality assurance checking and those sort of tasks, and water testing and those things that you have to do on the side. We do a monthly medical with all the expeditioners over winter just to check in, see how they're going physically and mentally. And then to get back to the first bit of the question, the biggest thing that I did was actually dental work. And I forgot to say that you do a week of dental training at the Royal Melbourne Dental Hospital. So you get to know how to use drills and do an assessment and do basic fillings and solve basic dental problems. And certainly that increased my dental knowledge compared to what it was beforehand.
Rather vertically.
Beforehand, it certainly, it was probably, you've got a sore tooth. It's not an active abscess, so we'll get you to the dentist. But I had to, get a little bit more knowledge than that going down there, and certainly did some even interesting dental work, which was a great skill to have. And you sort of realise that teeth, people worry about them probably because they have to pay dentists so much to look after them, but down there they're thankful for the help that they can get to get out of tooth pain or infection or otherwise. So
did you have to pull any teeth?
It was no, I don't have to pull it. You try and avoid pulling teeth,
sure,
if at all possible. But certainly, did some dental work while I was there. Other sort of work is just a lot of trips and falls because people are outside on the rock and the ice and otherwise. So you get a bit of musculoskeletal and occupational based medicine to do. Like everywhere else, there's a little bit of mental health because of the isolation and the challenges associated with being away from your family and friends and your home for so long. But there'd be the regular things that you get done, get to do down there. And certainly, there are other places have bigger cases at times, and I can't really go into specifics just because
sure.
of the confidentiality, but, but we do have a weekly meeting where all the cases and what's happening on all the stations are discussed. So you get to know what's going on the other stations and be involved in, group hive sort of management decision making about patients and, throw in some ideas about your experience. So it's, even though you are isolated, yourself being
connected.
The only doctor over winter. Yeah, and I think, the doctors that I shared a winter with, I think, we still text each other. We, I'm sure we will catch up at points at conferences and otherwise. And you have a pretty special bond because you spend that, initial time training with them, and then spend a lot of time doing almost the same thing as them. So
these doctors are also at other Australian bases in Antarctica?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many people would you have been responsible for? Like, whose health you were responsible for? How many people were under kind of your care?
Over winter at Mawson Station, we had 20. So,
okay.
They're made up by a station leader, a stores person, 3 carpenters, 3 electricians, 3 plumbers, a couple of Bureau of Meteorology technicians, a chef, a couple of comms techs, and I'm just trying to think if I've forgotten anyone. Hopefully, I haven't. But yeah, so it's
Okay.
mostly keeping the lights on over winter, but just to keep stations running because it's such an extreme environment. But we certainly do some science and collect data and change cameras and do things for the scientists over winter. But they're more primarily there over the summer season when it's a lot more hospitable and easier to collect data and easier to do those sort of things. But the science sort of doesn't stop. It just gets more automated, I suppose.
Do you have any visitors during that time period? I mean, lots of people visit Antarctica during the summer, but I'm guessing during the winter, you guys are really on your own.
Yeah, over the winter, the sea ice is frozen for, a long way out to sea. So it's very hard to, it's almost impossible to get in at that time period. So, the range of helicopters and other things aren't long enough to get in at that time. So we're pretty much cut off from the world for a few months. Yeah. With global warming, they have done medical retrievals over winter at other stations by coming to the edge of the sea ice or breaking some sea ice and then taking a helicopter and picking up patients. So it depends where you are as to how isolated you are, I suppose.
How isolated you are. Just getting on to, and you alluded to being able to talk to practitioners at other stations. Were you able to do telehealth, or were you able to contact family, friends, or even get advice from elsewhere, from outside of Antarctica?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the telehealth. So I think the Antarctic Division, or the Australian Antarctic Division, probably has one of the best, if not the best, telehealth system available in the world.
Wow.
Set up by Dr. Jeff Hateley, who's an ACRM fellow and head of the PMU, or the Polar Medical Unit. And with that, you can get on the phone or video link or otherwise to them first if you have something, and then pretty quickly, if it's required, have a specialist of most specialties on the phone straight away.
That's great.
So I suppose that's probably the big difference between, working in rural WA or otherwise. Instead of ringing up your referring hospital and talking to a registrar who then talks to their consultant, or depending on their experience, will give you advice straight away. You can go straight to the source and get pretty specific advice. With a lot of the specialists they use, especially the surgeons and the anaesthetists and a few other specialists, have a lot of experience and knowledge about Antarctica. So, the advice they give is tailored to the situation and what you've got available and what you can do, which is more limited than around Australia. But you can certainly do a lot if you need to.
It sounds like it. And what about being in touch with family and friends? 7 months, I think that's how long you said you were away for. Is that correct? It's a long time if you don't get to talk with people you love.
Yeah, we left in February and I got home in November, so I only did that over winter. I didn't do the next summer. I think you have all the Skype or, FaceTime or Zoom or otherwise, the internet connections now with Starlink and satellites is pretty good. So
it sounds like it's better than it is in some parts of West Australia, but go ahead.
Yeah, certainly, so it was. So you could, you could stream Netflix, or you could, watch sports or otherwise, which is probably a lot different to what it was many years ago when those satellites and things weren't available for internet communications. But We had people, if there are certain people who go there for the outdoors, and there are certain people who go there to escape society. And if you like to play games that escape society, there are certainly people that had internet gaming going on, all the time. So it depends what your interests are, I suppose.
Well, what's great is you actually have the opportunity, the technology, the ability to stay connected, even if you can't walk outside the door and meet up with people. You can still stay connected electronically.
Yeah,
and that's actually really great. So when you weren't busy medically, and you mentioned, the stock taking, the meetings, things like that, you're quite a keen outdoors person, is my understanding. So what do you get to do to sort of have fun besides computer or IT type stuff? What do you do when you're not doing your work-related stuff?
So it's, you live quite closely with 20 people. So there's quite even though, it's only those people, you have quite a strong social calendar. So there's, activities and parties and events and people's birthdays. And I learned some, you had a chef on site. So I certainly learnt some new cooking skills. I wasn't the best cook before. I'm still not the best cook, but I certainly learnt some new skills, including deep frying, which I'm not entirely proud of, but it's a way that you feed a lot of people.
Good.
But on top of that, outdoors is a big thing there. So you can go once the
how much light do you have down there,
over,
by the way, during the winter? Like, do you have any?
It slowly gets to the sun not rising and just a bit of twilight. And then you have a week or so of that, and then slowly and gradually gets more and more and more till you almost have eternal daylight, which is, they're both problems in themselves. But I certainly, even for myself, believe seasonal affective disorder now, just from the lack of sunshine. It certainly does just somber you a little bit, yeah. But certainly there's no worry about getting outside and doing things.
Okay.
So once the sea freezes over, you can drive the Haglin vehicles. So they're sort of quad track, double cab vehicles that are built for going on snow and ice, out to, rookeries of emperor penguin colonies, and exploring islands out and about.
And is this mainly in the
then
darkness?
Also going
is this during dark?
Yeah, you can do it in the darkness.
Right.
Yeah, but you mostly try and do it in daylight, but you can do it in the dark. And then going up to the plateau. So there's quite a few what they call field huts. So they're just little boxes that'd be probably 3 or 4 meters by 6 meters. So not very big. They've got 4 beds, a stove, a heater, and a table, and that's about it. And a toilet, which is outside in the cold, which is a challenge in itself, that I'm not sure everyone wants to hear about. But to go to the toilet, you have to take your clothes off. Yeah, which is interesting when it's minus 20 or 30 outside and wind chill and otherwise. Yeah, and then you put it in a bag and leave it outside, and it freezes, and you take it back to be disposed of. But that's a bit of human interest for you. But yeah, disposing of all your waste and otherwise. But yeah, you can go out to these field huts and just get away from station, which is nice. Play cards, have a bottle of wine, chat to people, do some walks up mountains and other things, and see wildlife. I suppose a good thing about the nights being so long is you get amazing aurora australis, or the southern lights.
Oh, yes.
So that's a pretty to see. And it was a pretty active season while I was away, and we got good clear skies. So I'm not sure if you remember that that aurora that we had maybe April last year, which was a big one around the world. We went out to a field hut, 4 of us, and set up cameras, and it was
Wow.
quite an amazing show. I could probably forward a video of it together just so you can get an idea.
I think
But it
people
was,
would be delighted to see
all the
something like that.
Lots of greens, but this one had all the colours of the rainbow and almost like kaleidoscopes and everything. So
And
it
they're
was
moving as
probably
well.
one of the most memorable. Yeah, one of the most memorable things that happened while I was away, I think. Yeah.
It sounds like you
The
enjoyed a
experience, you
lot of
probably-
your time there.
Yeah, and you know, we got out to so there's an emperor penguin colony that actually that has their, you know, their hatching and then their brooding of their chicks on the sea ice. So they come back to the same place every year, and you get to see them from when they come in, and then they hatch their chicks, and then you see the chicks grow up, and then they're very cute then, and then you see them turn
And you
into
go out and
these
do
sort
happy
of
feet with
fugly. Yeah, they turn into these sort of fugly little chicks after a few months. But it's amazing to see the life cycle of that, and you know, be a unique thing that would be very hard to see if you weren't down there.
What about some of the other wildlife? Do you get things like seals? You know, you might have seen whales, or are you too far away from the shore for that? What was some of the other wildlife you saw besides those penguins?
Yeah, you see a lot of the seals as well. So they also go through their pupping, and you see their young being born later in the year after, you know, coming into spring. And then the birds come back at about the same time.
What
and
birds
then over
for
summer
those
you do
who are wildlife, you know, who are birding at albatross or
petrels and
petrels?
yeah, lots of petrels, and I'm not a big twitcher, but certainly there's a few of them around. But it is nice to see them just soaring over the you know, the white landscape, because it is like an icy desert. So when you see something and you haven't seen it for a long time, it is quite exciting to see wildlife and things moving and the life coming back. Over summer, certainly they do see whales, and they had some killer whales come very close to the station. There's Adelie penguins that come in a little bit later, and they're quite yappy, and you know, they're a bit more. Penguins are quite inquisitive. You know, they'll come up to you. You know, you have distances that we have to be away from them for their safety and otherwise, and
But
the
they'll come
concerns
up to
about
you.
bird flu were there. But they'll certainly come up to you and be inquisitive about you. So it's amazing when that happens, being surrounded by a big mob of penguins.
Does the station have any kind of mascots, or were there any kind of animals that kind of adopted being around the station?
So there is, there's a mascot actually that's it's named Stay. So it's a guide dogs for the blind plastic dog, and it's originally quite a funny story, and some expeditioners many like it'd be more than 20 years ago took one of the guide dogs for the blind dogs on the ship on the way down.
A live dog. This is a live dog.
No, this is one of the ones that you put the coins in.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay.
Fundraising dog, and they stole it, and initially got in a bit of trouble about stealing it, but because you go away and you're not paying rent, you're not paying for food, you've got no costs. They actually raised so much money for the guide dogs that it didn't turn into trouble anymore. It turned into, a good thing for guide dogs. So
that's great.
The mascot actually goes between the stations and someone had, when the ship was in, someone would steal it and it'd go from Macquarie Island, which is sub-Antarctic, it'd go to Casey Station, it'd go to Davis Station, it'd go to Mawson. And then it had at times been kidnapped and gone to the Northern Hemisphere. And then it got lost. So just when we were there, they actually dropped a new stay. So I don't know whether they call it stay 2, but we didn't quite get our resupply done completely. And we got an airdrop from the Australian Army, and they dropped a new stay out of a plane and stay parachuted in. So
love it.
That's the mascot.
Love it.
So it's a bit of, and certainly it's good for the guide dogs, and it's actually a nice story, isn't it?
It is. It's great.
That keeps people connected.
Absolutely. It really does. It sounds like a lot, as I said before, you really enjoyed your time there. What were the most challenging bits? What were the bits that perhaps were hard or, that really challenged you?
I think, being away from home for such a long time is always a challenge. It's a long time to be away from family and friends and what you want to be doing at home. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people, or most people, struggle with in one way or another. Certainly, you do have to get permission to even go outside at times, and sometimes you can't go outside. So you have to find some new things to do, reading or the gym or watching movies or puzzles or music or otherwise. They're probably the biggest challenges, I think. And then the other, professionally, the challenges are probably a lot the same as being a doctor in a small country town. You've got to have friends and otherwise, but you've also got to have a boundary and a doctor-patient relationship. So I suppose that's the challenging bit as well, when you do live and eat and socialise and otherwise with, everyone. But
that's a very critical thing about setting boundaries, as you've said, because normally as doctors, we don't really socialise with our patients. And we want to keep our personal information personal. So yeah, you'd have to be really mindful about what's appropriate and what's not, I'm guessing. And yet you still want to be, friendly and collegiate. Was there anything, I guess what I'm wondering about is there anything that you felt insecure about, or that you sort of thought, well, I'm just going to have to wing this one and see where it goes?
I think so, because sometimes, if you're not skilled in something or, practiced in something, you can get help and you can get someone else to do it, or you could get otherwise. I think you just have to, I think everyone's winging a little bit of stuff down there because you need generalists in everything. So I can't think of anything specifically, but I think that's the whole, because it's such a foreign environment. I think you just, end up winging the whole year almost.
And you're not on your own. And you mentioned before in the preparation that there were people who were non-medical who were also doing training. So did you have a team with you, or people with other skills that were not coming from a medical background, yet could be of help to you if you needed them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a team called the lay surgical assistants. So their job is to help out if, we have someone sick requiring hospital level of care. So, helping with nursing tasks. But their other job is also to be prepared to be both scrubs and anaesthetic assistants and nurses if we do have to do an operation or do any dental work or otherwise. So they go through a training scheme at the Royal Hobart Hospital where they go into theatre and learn. So 2 of them do the scrub learning and 2 of them do the anaesthetic learning. So they're ready to help out in that respect, which is pretty amazing if you're so I had two tradies. I had a carpenter and an electrician, and then I had the stores lady and one of the Bureau of Meteorology techs. So, most people non-medical don't get to walk into a theatre and see what happens, and even assist and, prepare and do everything associated with it. So I think it's an amazing experience that they get. And, we have a training session every few weeks and go through something different. So, in work time, they get an afternoon off their normal job and we hang out and, you do some fun stuff as well. I taught them to suture, and we did plaster of Paris casting and lots of different things, which they all are quite interested in and love doing. And it's a good little bonding team that you have.
So if, we'll need to bring this to a close soon, though I'm sure there's lots of people who are listening who would have lots of questions for you. So what advice do you have for people who, after listening to these, going, wow, I'd really like to have a crack at, being a medical officer in Antarctica? Yeah,
so every year around November, December, the application process starts. Antarctica.gov.au is the website, and it's run through the Polar Medical Unit. So that's how you do an application. So that's the first bit, and then I suppose otherwise is just having general medical experience, which I suppose you can't beat going rural to get that experience. Sure. I think that helped me get the job. I worked all over Tassie, and I've worked over a lot of WA and otherwise. I think just doing general and broad medical rotations and practice would probably sit you in the best stead to get that. And then you can also study medicine in extreme rural and remote environments. So it's a course done through UTAS and the CALM Institute, which the Polar Medicine Unit also sort of contributes to quite a lot. And that would also give you a lot of background and help, and all the knowledge that would help you probably be a better candidate for the interviews. I suppose one of the other interesting things I should probably say that I forgot, that's a quick thing. One of the better things that I did for the year was being involved in research. And so the research is often collaboration between the Antarctic Division, and we were doing a butterfly ultrasound study in collaboration with NASA as well. So, testing how lay people without knowledge of anatomy and ultrasound, how they could follow directions and get imaging results from a protocol.
That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, because Antarctica is probably the closest analog that they can get to space with its remoteness and its isolation. They get a bit more power to their study by having a few more numbers, and certainly with the time we can provide that sort of research and otherwise. So I hadn't done much of that before in my career, and it was quite interesting to be involved in it. And there's certainly challenges, mainly because if you don't have a little bit of equipment, you just can't go to Officeworks or Bunnings or what have you to get it. There often has to be a bit of IT magic run, and certainly there was a lot of IT magic. You're very thankful to there was a chap, Hugh, who was our PMU IT guy, and he was amazing. So I think you certainly do appreciate some of those people a lot more. Nothing was ever a problem, and he solved every little IT problem that came up. So he was great.
That sounds great. Would you go back?
I think I certainly would. Maybe not straight away. I think it's a big undertaking in your life, sort of between 18 months to 2 years, depending on which station you go to. And so that's a long time away from, family and friends and otherwise. But I think in the future, I certainly would. There are other opportunities going down as a ship's doctor, which is shorter timeframes, and there are certainly summer periods that you can get, mostly after you've already done a winter. So there's certainly other opportunities that aren't so time intensive. But to answer the question, I think I would go back for sure.
I think you
would.
would.
It's a pretty amazing continent. Lots to see.
Sounds like you had an amazing time, and it was a great professional and personal experience there. I'm going to bring this to a close. So I want to thank you, David, so much for your time and your enthusiasm, and looking forward to what I'm sure you've got lots of exciting things ahead as well. Thanks again.
Thanks, Lynn.
All right. Bye.
Okay.